Episode 61. Thank you for pressing play on the Inside Deschutes County podcast. Wherever you might be and however you might be listening, thank you for making us a part of your day. You can subscribe on any podcast platform, and you can find us on deschutes.org/podcast.
Deschutes County is an amazing place to live,
Ease of access,
work, and play.
Great place to raise a family.
I love the weather and the high desert.
At Deschutes County, we provide excellent service.
Beautiful.
We're here to help you.
Deschutes County is the heart of Oregon.
Everyone wants to be here.
Welcome to the Inside Deschutes County podcast. I'm Eric Breon. Well, if you've ever stepped outside on a clear Central Oregon night, you know how stunning our sky can be. Stars literally stretch from horizon to horizon. But as our region grows, keeping our skies dark, it's become a bit of a challenge. Today we're talking about dark skies, what it means, what's happening in Deschutes County, and how we can play a part in preserving one of our region's most beautiful natural features, our dark sky. To start, I'm joined by Tanya Saltzman. She's a senior planner with Deschutes County. Welcome.
Thanks.
You've been helping lead the county's work on some lighting standards, and there are some changes coming next month. We'll talk about that. But before we jump in, I kind of want to tease our viewers, and tell our listeners, actually, that we'll have two representatives from Dark Sky Oregon join us in just a bit to talk us about their organization and why they feel it's important to keep light pollution at bay. So, now that I got that out of the way, Tanya, welcome back, by the way.
Thank you.
Return guest. Can you start by explaining a little bit of what the county's doing in terms of outdoor lighting? What changes are coming next month?
Absolutely. So technically the county did them already, which is exciting. It just we're in a period before it becomes effective.
Okay.
So basically, earlier this year, we went through a process to update the outdoor lighting ordinance. So that's a chapter of our county code that regulates outdoor lighting in the rural county. Which means, of course, the unincorporated Deschutes County. I always have to say that because it's not the city of Bend.
Limits.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not the city of Bend. It's not the city of Redmond. It's not the city of Sisters.
That's really important to note, too, because I know that people have questions about big lights from big companies shining through their back windows. So it's important to note that we're talking about the county.
Correct.
The county outside city limits.
Exactly. And for what I do in the planning division, that's how everything we do that has to do with zoning applies. It's never in the cities. So a city of Bend has their own rules, their own government, their own staff, and so we deal with just the unincorporated counties. So our task, as envisioned by the county commissioners, was to revise our outdoor lighting ordinance, which basically was from more or less 1994. So even though I think of the 90s as being really recent,
that goes
apparently
back
it's not. It was actually quite some time ago, and we realized that, with input of people like our special guests here today, we know that these are outdated regulations, and they could have used some, or they needed some modernizing and just cleaning up. So that's what we did. We had a couple of hearings over the summer. And the Board of County Commissioners voted to approve these changes. And these changes, which I'll talk about later, they come into effect on December 23rd.
So 30 plus years since this has been updated, a lot has changed over that in terms of light. We got LEDs, we've got, just technology. I imagine, Tanya, that's part of what the discussion was as to why some of this was needed.
Yeah, there's so many reasons. If you looked at our 1994 code, and I realized that just looking at code of any kind is never easy. I kind of speak that language because that's my job, but it's not super clear.
Yeah, you sent me a document, and I was like,
what is that?
I have no idea what this is.
That's why I'm here, is to explain it. But, the old regulations, or soon-to-be old regulations, had a lot of charts that were based on bulb types, so different types of sodium lights and let's see, fluorescent and metal halide and high pressure sodium, low pressure sodium, that type of thing. It was fairly complicated for the user.
I've never heard of a sodium light.
It's a type of light.
It is.
Yeah.
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, there's a whole list of these here, and people were supposed to follow. By following the code, they would say, okay, I have this type of light. What's my wattage, and therefore what kind of shielding or what kind of measures do I have to take to try to prevent light pollution? So it was a little complicated, and then we kind of cleaned up other aspects of the code, just making it a little more intuitive, just slightly more easier, we hope to read, in terms of just how it's organized from a just purely language standpoint. And we clarified what types of lights are exempt from some of the regulations, such as holiday lighting or things for aviation or that type of thing. There's always been exemptions. We just wanted to kind of streamline those and clean those up. But basically, the heart and soul of this is that we just drilled it all down to 3 main requirements for lighting.
Hit me.
All right. One. It has to be downcast. Lighting should be
Downcast.
facing down.
Okay.
2, it has to be fully shielded. So there has to be a little hat on it, essentially.
Okay.
You'd want to see it, there has to be a fixture all the way around the bulb so that, that helps with the downcast, so you're not seeing this glare from all around. And these are all, unless they're exempt, but that's a whole nother category. And then lastly, light trespass. Light trespass is prohibited for outdoor light fixtures. In other words, you don't want to be able to see it on another property line. You don't want to be able to see that bulb from another property line.
So from your neighbor's house.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So those are the 3 central tenets of the ordinance. We tried to keep it simple, and hopefully this will clarify things for people and make it just easier to comply, and get rid of all those confusing charts.
And this goes into effect December 23rd. So
Yes.
holiday lights will already be up
Yes.
for most people, but they're exempt.
We have exemptions, and there were previously. We just clarified some of the dates, but holiday lighting is generally exempt for a certain period of time. We gave a certain window around kind of between Thanksgiving and I believe it was January 15th, as well as a few flexible days as well, because people celebrate all kinds of holidays. But we also want to make sure that people aren't, keeping up their holiday lights all year round.
So will there be time for people to adjust to make these changes once they're fully in effect?
Yes, yeah. So technically, the way we have this written is that people have 3 years to comply.
Okay.
From the date, the effective date, so from December 23rd. 3 years after that, if you have fixtures that don't comply with the rules, technically you are in violation. Does that mean that the light police are gonna come knocking on your door on December 24th of 3 years later? Not necessarily, but it is technically considered a violation. Someone can call that in as a complaint to code enforcement. It can be considered a nuisance, and you can be subject to code enforcement.
I was going to ask how does that get enforced? I'm sure that's tricky.
It is.
And so not to get too much in the weeds, but I'm sure people want to know, like, well, okay, what happens if, I'm
Straight to jail.
right.
just
Yeah, right. Throw away the key. Blind them with light. No,
Yeah.
I'm just but are there things like that what do people need to know in regards to
Yeah.
that? I mean, the 3 years is a bit of time to get up to speed, but
Yeah, it's not always easy, and this has been a point of discussion throughout all of our public process about this. Is we have these rules, are they going to be enforced? And so the way our community development code enforcement department works, it's complaint based. So we don't have people like driving around looking for violations, whether that's a building permit violation, a lighting violation, a septic violation. These are complaint based, or if staff happens to see things, we initiate a complaint. Usually for things like lighting, it is ultimately, to be honest, a lower priority than something like an exploding septic system. And it's not a health and safety, although it certainly is, as you'll hear later, it does affect people's health. But in the immediate sense, code enforcement prioritizes usually kind of structural failures, safety issues, that type of thing. However, the goal is to get voluntary compliance. So generally, when you if your neighbor called in a violation for the lighting ordinance, generally code enforcement would send a letter saying, hey, you violated this code. Here's the code. This is how you can get into compliance. We try to, not punish people immediately. That's not the way people learn. I think a lot of people just don't know what they're supposed to be doing. So that's why something like this podcast is super helpful.
That's why we're here.
Yeah,
that's why
exactly.
we're here, Tanya.
But sending a letter, and then if it continues, then it can be escalated. There are, certain instances where people are doing things with lights maliciously. That doesn't happen very often, but we have heard about it. But, ultimately it can become a violation that elevates. We hope that doesn't happen, and generally that has not happened very much or at all, if I'm not mistaken, with lighting violations.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but was this a tricky process? Because I would imagine there'd be some people that maybe don't want these changes or worried about their safety when, if they live out on a farm, animals come by, they want to walk out of their home and feel safe, and they have light. It doesn't seem like these changes are drastic per se, but what kind of feedback did you get?
I mean, that's a really good question, and I'm sure Chris and Bill also have some thoughts on this. But yeah, I will say largely people were in favor who testified, who participated, who wrote to me or participated in the hearings. Some people have expressed some hesitation about perceived safety. I think perceived is the important word here, and more light is not always better in terms of safety. And I think communicating to people that we're not trying to make everything unsafe or dangerous or what have you, or affect your animals, and get them eaten by coyotes or something like that, but we're just trying to make reasonable and responsible lighting rules. So, for instance, there are certainly exemptions for farm use. If you need to use your tractor in the middle of the night because that's your business, your livelihood, you can do that. So we're not trying to impinge on people's kind of right to use their property. We're just trying to have a reasonable amount of light. And I think people were really largely sympathetic, and I think we got a lot of really good testimony. People were into it. I think people move here to see the night sky and to it's a natural resource. So I think we got a really good reaction from people, in my opinion.
I do want to bring our guests in here in just a minute, but before I do, I want to be clear. Is this about just homeowners? Because this isn't going to affect, county roads or, things like lighting on a back county road somewhere.
There's certain exemptions for transportation related stuff. So obviously streetlights have to, they have to comply with certain, standards that have to do with road safety. And we explain that in the code. But it does address commercial uses as well, some signs and billboards and stuff like that. If businesses have, one thing we regulated or addressed, I should say, this time around that we didn't before was string lights. And that's the thing that people are really interested in for many reasons. Some people love them, some people hate them, and some commercial businesses use them. So we do put some sideboards on, the hours that commercial businesses could use string lights.
Is that a change, or is that
we didn't address string lights at all before?
Okay.
And there's some regulations for residential uses and string lights as well. So we tried to touch on things and provide examples or provide best practices as well in the code, just kind of concepts that people could adhere to just to be good neighbors without necessarily having to, have a violation. We just want to encourage people to do the right thing.
December 23rd?
December 23rd.
Yeah.
Just in time for Christmas. Yeah.
Well, let's zoom out a bit and kind of talk about the bigger picture as well, kind of what dark skies actually means and why it matters and why communities are trying to reduce light pollution. Joining us now are Chris Hill and Bill Kowalik from Dark Sky, Oregon. They've both been deeply involved in raising awareness, helping communities like ours make small changes with big impact. Thank you both for being here. Bill, Chris, appreciate it. For those who might not be familiar, talk about Dark Sky, Oregon, Dark Skies International, and just kind of the overall effort, if you will.
Yeah, certainly, Eric. So Dark Sky Oregon is a statewide nonprofit, 501c3. Everybody involved is a volunteer. Nobody gets paid. And our mission is to reduce light pollution across the state of Oregon for the purpose of improving the quality of life issues regarding circadian rhythm, wildlife ecosystem, being able to see the stars at night. So for these various reasons, we are involved, like I say, statewide. And we happen to live here in Central Oregon, which is why we're able to sit with you here in Deschutes County. And there's, as you point out, there is an international organization called Dark Sky International, with groups around the globe, actually. And our Dark Sky Oregon is independent of that group, but we also work with them fairly closely on pamphlets and technology and all. So, we're talking about a global effort, and there's been a general increase in understanding of the benefits of dark skies for human health and the other reasons I mentioned over the last several years, and it's been accelerating. Just recently, there was an article in the news about a scientific paper that drew a parallel between exposure of light at night while people were trying to sleep and cardiovascular disease, which seemed like quite a significant thing.
Why, Chris, those seem very obvious, but what else? Why is light pollution such a growing concern, and why dark skies is such an important effort?
Well, I'm also an amateur astronomer. I do astrophotography, and so therefore, as I always joke with Bill, I said I'm a user of the product of dark skies, and so therefore, one of the things that is sad is that we're losing the battle for keeping pristine night skies. In fact, I was just out at French Glen in the Oregon Outback, and had the opportunity to stand in the middle of a field and not see one single light, and the skies just almost cast a shadow, which was pretty amazing. But getting back to your original question, the thing is that we not only have an issue with light pollution on the surface, but we also have a light pollution in space with the growing number of satellites that shine light off the sun and brighten our night sky that way. And that's definitely something that No Dark Sky International is getting much more involved with. But bringing it closer to home, it is, again, as Bill said, relating to not only our own circadian rhythm, but also our nighttime pollinators. You've probably noticed the amount of bugs on your windscreen over the last 10 years has dropped significantly. We've lost a significant population of our insects. And unfortunately, like moths and such like, they are our nighttime pollinators. And the blue lights attract them. And so therefore you see these poor little moths circling these white lights and dying of exhaustion, where they should be out pollinating plants. Now, a very simple change is to bring in amber light bulbs, because they can't see amber light. And so therefore, that is one of the things that we really want to promote.
Well, I was going to ask you that, because the county's got the three things that they're putting into effect. It starts December 23rd. But if people want to take that above and beyond what is being done at the county level, if they feel like this is an important issue to them, what are things that you're encouraging people to do, for keeping down their light pollution?
One key thing is to reduce the amount of blue light that's produced. The higher the Kelvin rating of a light bulb, over 3,000 kelvins, which is white light, going above that, you are generating a lot more blue light, which scatters, which is why the sky is blue, frankly. And the thing is that creates a much larger light dome, whereas the old sodium vapor lights, which you brought up earlier on, they put out about 1,800 to 2,000 kelvins. And so therefore the amount of light pollution that they created was significantly less, even though they were very hungry when it comes to electricity usage. But the point is that the new technology today is that you can actually have amber lights produced by LEDs, which will then reduce that light pollution.
That's kind of what I was talking to Tanya about, was kind of just the evolution of technology, the evolution of light. I mean, I know that even camera, you were talking about astrophotography, and I play around with a little photography. I mean, you can see the sky. You can see the Milky Way. And, now these lights are brighter, and they can impact some of those things. Is the technology kind of coming into play here as far as, kind of the impact on our night skies?
Yeah, certainly. And the issue primarily, Eric, is that I think people are installing more lights because LEDs are inexpensive to run compared to the older incandescent lights. And they typically choose lights that have too much blue, that Chris was talking about, so that we have an increase in population in Central Oregon, which contributes to the spread of sky glow. But there's also, people generally are putting out too much light, and it's actually having an impact not only here in Central Oregon, but it's spreading southeastward into the Oregon outback, where we have, as Chris was saying, pristine night skies, but they're on the verge of gradually disappearing because of, too many lights in our big cities. And that's just not just Central Oregon, but all the communities surrounding Oregon outback, like Klamath Falls and over in Idaho. So it's really a regional and, statewide issue.
Before we came on, Bill, we were talking about Arizona and Flagstaff being a kind of the poster child of dark skies. What is it that they're doing that you're so impressed with? That obviously different area, different parts of this country, but what is it that you look at and go, man, I kind of like what they're doing?
Yeah. So what they're doing primarily is requiring amber lights outdoors, not only actually in their street lights, but also at residences. They allow white light in certain environments where you want to see a color rendition, like at a car lot when the lot is open, or at a gas station where you're pumping gas. But otherwise, the lights at Flagstaff in the community are this amber color, which means there's essentially no blue spectrum in that light. It's amber, visible to our eyes. And that greatly reduces the sky glow, reduces the impact on the insects, the wild ecosystem, reduces the impact on people's circadian rhythm. And plus, it's beautiful at night in Flagstaff. In fact, my wife and I went there specifically to see the experience, and it's quite attractive.
Are there other things that are maybe you're concerned about that, I drive down my street, and it's kind of funny. I drive down and I see all the lights come on as I drive by individual homes, like security systems and all the lights that they have. Are there other things, like that you're like, man, I really wish people might, think of a different way or a different approach to handling those things? Not that you don't want people to not feel safe, but again, it kind of goes, Tanya, to what we were talking about in terms of this balance between safety and doing maybe what feels right in terms of protecting the sky.
Some of the newer technology, security lights, so you can actually play with the spectrum of the lighting, so you can actually tone that down to try and bring it down to 2,800 or even 3,000, as opposed to some of them are putting out 4,000 or 5,000 kelvins. And we can also talk about the blue streetlights in Bend as well, which is something that we're actively working on in a different venue. But the thing is that the whole myth around bright lights and security is something that we are trying to re-educate people on. And the key thing here is when you are driving down a dark street and you have a car coming towards you and you've got those headlights coming right into your eyes. So what do you see a couple of seconds afterwards? Nothing. And so the thing is, it's the same thing with these security lights that are so bright, because you may drown the area just around those security lights, or even, trespass the light. But the thing is that your retinas are stained with that light for quite a while afterwards, and so therefore you have a night blindness. Whereas if the light was much more subdued, you would be able to see into the shadows. You would be able to make sure you don't trip over a curb or something like that, because you're still blinded by that light. You can't see where you're going. And so therefore, it comes down to those concepts of, of responsible lighting. And we were talking about light trespass. We were talking about the brightness. We were talking about light when it's needed. Does the light outside your house need to be on at 2:00 in the morning when no one's about? Or should it come on if something or someone
the automation aspect
exactly,
to that,
and that's part of one of the concepts of responsible lighting.
Tanya, there's probably a business aspect to this too. Did you hear from people who maybe do tours or kind of photography tours? You were talking about astrophotography, and there are a lot of people that give tours in this area about, hey, let's go out, let's take some nighttime photography. Can we still protect that, and kind of enjoy that? Did you get some of that feedback?
We did. And I'm blanking on her name right now, and apologies, but it was someone who does lead tours, and I don't know if either of you remember.
Wanderlust tours?
Yeah, Wanderlust
Yes,
tours,
yes.
exactly. Yeah, and this is her bread and butter. She does all kinds of tours, but part of them are to view the night sky kind of out in the wilderness, and she was, a proponent of good regulations and sensible regulations.
What do you guys hope people take away from the conversation about, I'm hearing a lot about the amber light versus the blue light. Is that kind of the big effort now? I mean, I've heard that a couple times from you guys. Is that
It's certainly
is that the biggest challenge that you have?
Yeah, I would say so, Eric. Convincing people that, maybe educating is the right word. Educating people through, that, hey, there's a huge difference between putting on a light that looks white to our eyes, which therefore contains a lot of the blue spectrum, and an amber bulb, which, has absolutely no blue in it. And it really is the blue that causes the blue at night, which was never present during the evolution of life on Earth. So our circadian rhythm is tied to that presence or absence of blue light. Sunlight has a lot of blue in it, and it causes our circadian rhythm to reset when the sun rises in the morning. Whereas all night long, if we're in a natural environment, there's no blue, and so our melatonin kicks in to help us sleep. Melatonin is entirely key to the presence or absence of that blue spectrum. So it's really something that's only been recognized in the last, say, 10 years, the science behind. And that's why the American Medical Association advises you, if you expect to go to sleep soon, do not be looking at a computer monitor.
TV, a phone.
That has white light on it, because that white contains the blue, which is counterproductive to your melatonin production.
I'll just add to that. There is also, melatonin is known as the hormone of darkness, but there's also another one, which is glutamine. And that is actually a hormone of light. So it's think of it as looking at a blue screen before you go into bed is like taking a cup of coffee. Glutamate is actually a stimulant for the brain, and so therefore when you create that, it inhibits the melatonin production, as Bill said, but it also stimulates the brain, and so therefore it's difficult to shut off that. And when you from 8 p.m. until 2 a.m. in the morning is when you're actually producing melatonin. And if you have something that inhibits that, then you're not going to have a good night's sleep.
So, what kind of outreach do you do now? Do you obviously things like this, but how do people get the word about this information? Obviously, a website or things like that. But are there discussions? Are you conducting classes? How do people learn about this stuff? Because I tell you, I've never heard of a sodium light in my life, or things like that. So, how do people get that information?
Well,
Read, Eric. Read a book.
yeah, it's sodium vapor light, by the way.
So, sodium vapor light. Okay.
Yeah. Well, we give presentations at request, like Rotary clubs, High Desert Museum, other organizations, not only in Central Oregon but elsewhere. We have created public service announcement animations available on our website. Those were created with grant support from Visit Central Oregon, who's motivated to help preserve the night skies in Central Oregon. So they give us grant money, and we made, I think there's 7 of them out there, and we just released a new one recently. What else, Chris?
We also participate in other outreach relating to like pole, pedal, paddle. We also have tables that we set up at some events where we actually give out light bulbs. Amber light bulbs.
Amber light bulbs.
That's a great idea.
That's a great idea, actually.
And we work very closely with Travel Oregon, and we've actually received grants from them, which is how we've funded some of these animations as well as the light bulbs. We also get invited. I did a talk at Observatory at the Worthy Brewing, and also at a homeowners association up on Aubrey Glen. So and then also we have been in discussions with the City of Bend, and also we work with star parties that are put on by Oregon Observatory down in Sun River. And also I'm starting to work with more with the Sisters High School with their astronomy club, and just kind of getting the word out there. Just any opportunity we have. We also have had a table at Bend 101. And we hope to have more inroads with the Chamber of Commerce and such like. So there's a lot of different avenues that we're pursuing. And Bill, maybe you want to talk a little bit about the group that we're just starting to get going in Bend itself.
Yeah, Chris is referring to a new group called Bend Night Sky Alliance, which is one of actually a dozen groups, literally a dozen groups around the state of Oregon that most of which have risen up on their own organic matter. For example, in Columbia Gorge, the Central Oregon coast, community of Eagle Crest, which is in Deschutes County, and also the community of Blue River down on the Mackenzie River. There's a group called Applegate After Dark in far southwestern Oregon that's been quite active to try to get a BLM community, a BLM park there certified as an international dark sky park, and a bunch of other ones, including the Bend Night Sky Alliance.
I'm sure you got all of those kind of listed on your website, Dark Sky Oregon, .org, I believe.
Yes, and we also have a monthly meeting where we actually bring all these people together and talk about what activity is going on in each of these groups, as well as what we're working on too.
So before I let you all go, we talked about the amber light bulbs versus the blue light, but what is the one thing that you might suggest to people, especially as we're kind of heading into the holidays and light seems to be a theme of the season? What would you suggest to people that they do in order to, maybe take a simple step to protect the night sky?
Well, one thing is visit our website, which is darkskyoregon.org.
Learn.
Yes, and learn. And watch some of our videos and as I say, learn. And think about, the lighting that you have not only on the outside of your house, but also in the inside of a house. one of the things that we did at home is we changed our living room and also our bedroom lighting to amber bulbs, which are basically these bug lights. And so therefore they put in our 1800 kelvins, and so therefore we read before we go to bed, and our eyes are bathed with this 1800 Kelvin light for the last half an hour or so before we go to bed. And so therefore this is one thing that we would really like to see people think about to improve their sleep cycles and their own overall health. Because at the end of the day, that's really what we're here for.
Well, I've learned a lot. Sodium vapor lights. Did I get that right? Sodium vapor.
Absolutely.
Kelvin.
Lord Kelvin.
Amber lights versus blue lights. And the hormone of darkness.
Yes.
And light. There's a hormone of light, too.
Yes.
Chris, Bill, Tanya, thank you all for joining me. It's great to hear how some of these simple changes, like adjusting the outdoor lighting, the shading, shielding fixture, can make a real big difference in keeping our skies dark and our nights full of stars. Thank you all for being here.
Yeah, thank you. And again, we can reach out to us on the email on our website. And Bill, is it info at...
hello@darkskyorgan.org.
We will get that out there. Thank you all.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
My thanks again to Tanya Saltzman from Deschutes County Community Development and Chris Hill and Bill Kowalik from Dark Sky, Oregon. You can learn more about Deschutes County's work on lighting standards at deschutes.org. And to explore all the resources from Dark Sky, Oregon and their local partners, you can visit darkskyoregon.org. We want to thank you again for listening to Inside Deschutes County. You can find us wherever you listen to your podcasts. We're on Apple, YouTube, Spotify, you name it. Or you can listen at deschutes.org/podcast. But until next time, be safe out there.